So literally just go there, post, and you're making money. It really is that simple. Like there's no like red tape, fine line, fine print. You're literally your posts and your engagement are earning you rewards.
Welcome to the Never Die Podcast, your weekly crypto alpha for those who never quit. Today we're talking to Bixbite about all things Farcaster. Bixbite is a dev building on Farcaster and knows a lot more about the culture and what's happening on Farcaster than I do. And we're going to cover everything from Farcaster frames to Farcaster tipping and all the different apps, projects, and other cool things being built on top of Farcaster. Let's dive in. To start out, can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Caitlin, and I go by Bixbite online. And yeah, so I've been involved in crypto since 2017. I got involved buying my first Bitcoin from Coinbase. And then I kind of got into like crypto mining, then went into Helium, and then Nouns DAO. And then from Nouns DAO, that's kind of how I got the invite into Farcaster / Warpcast.
Maybe for just the average person that has no reference to like what is Farcaster, what is Warpcast, can you give just like a brief like explanation of what it is?
So there's actually some pretty big like misconceptions going on. So Farcaster is actually the protocol, which is basically just kind of like a social graph protocol that you can build on top of. And then the platform that everyone is using right now, which is the social app platform, is Warpcast. So Farcaster is the protocol, and then on top of that is what they call a client. So if you hear anyone ever saying Farcaster client, that just means that it's basically like an application built on top of Farcaster.
And this is really similar to like with podcast. I think with people understand with podcasts, you can listen to a podcast on Apple Music, you can listen to a podcast on Spotify, on Google, Amazon, etc. They're all this. It's all the same RSS, right? It's like all the same protocol RSS, but you're able to listen to it through many different types of front ends. And so in the same way, Farcaster is, think of that'd be like the RSS where like the podcast would be hosted, and then there's different clients, and the most popular one today is Warpcast, but there's other ones too that have been built for various different things, and that's kind of the idea behind Farcaster is anyone could come build permissionlessly a front end and a client. But on the back end, that's all, just an open source protocol.
Correct. Yep. And then I would say probably the most popular kind of like backup right now, so to speak, from Warpcast that people are using is called Supercast. So Warpcast right now, essentially, it is a little bit centralized. So they're not ever claiming to be 100% decentralized. So they do have like kind of like spam filters in place, and previously they had where you had to have an active badge. So the active badge means that you had to have at least 400 followers, and then if you didn't have that active badge, then your posts were not like being able to be seen in channels. So what was interesting is you would go to Supercast and they didn't have any of those filters. So you would go to, for instance, again with my experience with Nouns was you'd go to Warpcast and you would see, maybe 10 posts per day on Warpcast, but then you'd go to Supercast and you'd see like 50 posts. But it was because those people didn't have the active badge, so their content essentially wasn't being seen.
And the way that I would like frame this so that people can understand like why you would do this would be if you guys remember like Instagram back in the day, right? Instagram, the way that I really enjoyed using it was as a way to connect with friends and family. So it's like I would go on Instagram so I could see kind of like what all my friends were up to and what they were doing with their lives. And that was a really great way to use it. But the algorithm for Instagram has changed a lot over the years. And now it's kind of like primarily, every time I go on there, it's just like reels. Like I'll just see random people's reels from all over the world. And like, that's not really why I like using Instagram. So imagine if you had a choice, you could say, let's say Instagram was like open source, permissionless, and anyone could build a front end. Well, maybe somebody build a front end that says, hey, we're just going to do photos and it's just going to be like your close friends and family. And maybe that's the one I would use. And maybe you're like, no, I'm really into reels. And so you have one that's more reel centric. And maybe there's more general ones like the Instagram app that you see today. And so it just opens up a lot of room for innovation, but it also opens up a lot of room for creators to own their audience. Do you want to go into a little bit about like how that would work?
So I started using Twitter, like everyone uses Twitter, right? So I started getting really heavy into Twitter back in probably 2020. And I built up a humble following of like a thousand followers, right? But I was proud of it. I was posting all my content, etc. And just 3 months ago, out of nowhere, my account was suspended. Out of nowhere. And I wasn't posting anything reckless. I was posting like nouns dow stuff, nothing crazy. I tried to appeal it 5 times. Like it's just not never coming back. So what I love about Farcaster and Warpcast is you essentially own your audience. And what that means is whether I'm on Warpcast, Supercast, essentially all my followers get ported into each of those platforms. So if you follow me on Warpcast and then I create an account on Supercast, my follower list is mine, which that to me, I really started leaning more into Warpcast after that happened, just because, it's kind of, especially these big influencers, you build up these followings on these platforms, but you don't own that following. And at any given time, you could have your account suspended, and essentially there's nothing you could do. So being able to like own your own audience and port it over is like a pretty powerful tool, I think.
I'm curious, were you like verified on Twitter? Did you like pay for the premium subscription?
Yes.
And you still got banned? Wait, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And they didn't give it. What was the
Yes.
reasoning? I'm sure they gave some sort of like, hey, you violated this code or whatever.
No, it just said you violated our rules. And then I was, messaging back and I was like, okay, like what rules? Can you please like provide context? And I was going through because I could still like access my profile, but like it wouldn't allow me to interact with anything. And I was like scrolling through and I was like, okay, here's a post of me at like a hackathon, and here's me in like ETH Global Waterloo, and here's me at, like ETH Denver. Like I wasn't posting any type of crazy content or engaging in anything crazy. And it just, I don't know, the algorithm kind of just suspended my account.
I have a similar story, but it wasn't with Twitter. It was with Instagram. So I spent I had this Instagram account for I think 11 years, and my whole all my family photos, everything was on there. Like it was my life history was on this thing, and I spent years trying to build it up, and I got to around 40,000 followers, and so I was pretty big. Like I had some videos with over 1 million views. It was huge, and one day I went to log in and I couldn't, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I checked my email and it's like, hey, you've been suspended. Like you're never going to get your account back. And I was like, what? And so I appealed it. And then like, a couple minutes later, I got an email back being like, we reviewed your account and you're permanently suspended. And I was like, what? And I didn't understand it. And so I spent like forever trying to figure out why I got suspended. And mine was stupid. Mine was really stupid. I got suspended because they thought I was pretending to be myself. They thought I was a fake me. So I have this thing where I have a lot of fake accounts that like pop up on social media where they try to pretend to be me and like DM my followers. Somebody reported my account as a fake me, and they wouldn't let me provide my ID. They wouldn't let me do anything, and it was very frustrating because I spent 10 years I lost a lot of photos. I lost obviously that huge following, and it was a very frustrating process, and that's kind of what made me first check out Farcaster and actually start this podcast. That's why I started the podcast. Was because I wanted something that I could own, that nobody could take away from me. And so this actually is a pretty big problem in the creator economy, is that you really don't own anything you're creating. You're more leasing it from these social media companies, and they have the right to take it away from you at any time.
Yeah, it's kind of scary actually when you think about it. But then when you discover things kind of like Farcaster and Warpcast, it kind of like opens your eyes that even like spaces, right? So X spaces, again, you're on there, you're building up this following, you're building up these audiences, but you don't actually really like own that content, so to speak, right? So that's what I do love about Farcaster, is it gives you the opportunity to create all of these different types of social platforms. So there's Warpcast, which everyone uses, which you would kind of consider compare it to Twitter. And then there's, for instance, like Tavern, which is kind of a place where you can go and do spaces. There's Unlonely, which is the same thing, where you can kind of like go and do these recorded spaces. Dracula would be kind of like an Instagram. So there's all these new protocols that are popping up like rather quickly too. And that's another thing is Warpcast, again, when it first launched, you had to have an invite. It was basically like invite only. So it was heavy with developers. So like Warpcast, the culture, the community is very heavy, like into builders. So when they launched Frames, for instance, within a week, there was probably, over 100 different frames launching.
You mentioned Farcaster frames. Can you explain what those are?
Yep. So imagine that you're scrolling on X or Twitter, and you're scrolling, and all of a sudden you see, your favorite content creator is putting out a mint, right? So with X and Twitter, you're logging in via your email address, but with Warpcast, you're basically connecting your wallet. So any interactions that you have within the app can kind of happen like and transact because your wallet is already connected. So what a frame is it's basically an in-feed widget. So if you're scrolling in your timeline and you see an NFT mint, you can click mint, and since your wallet's already connected, you can have the transaction happen right within that frame, and think of it again as like an in-feed widget without even leaving the platform. You mint it, it's confirmed, and then you keep on scrolling as usual.
Is there like, so I've seen the mints. So there's a lot of like, hey, mint this NFT. Is there like swaps too? Could somebody mention a token and you could just buy it right there?
Oh yeah. So, and again, that's what I'm saying is the innovation that happens is just absolutely wild. And for instance, like Jesse, the founder of Base, he was very heavy into supporting like frames and hackers. So essentially he was, just like providing, it was pretty crazy. There was like multiple essential like hackathons happening within the first week of frames development. And Jesse was just kind of like, hey, if you're a hacker and you're going to throw a hackathon, like let us know, we'll provide pizza. So it was kind of this like crazy thing. But yeah, the development that happened over, the first week or two was pretty wild. So as of right now, there's ones that are just like galleries for photos. There's NFT minting. There's swapping. So you can literally, again, because your wallet's already connected, I can, be scrolling and see a new meme coin pop up. And if it's integrated into that frame, I can just click swap and buy. You can send people, NFTs. You can send people meme coins. You can like vote on governance for DAOs all within a frame. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So it's like, man, I don't even know how to put it. It's just like a different UI, UX that's more community oriented for like a lot of these things, where maybe you might be swapping traditionally on the site by yourself. Now you're swapping on, Warpcast, and there's, I don't know. What does that really add to the experience, or is it just a convenience thing?
So what's interesting about Farcaster, again, is when you sign up, you have what's called an FID, which is like your Farcaster ID. And what that does is, again, because Farcaster is basically a social graph that you're building on top of. So for instance, they have the Farcaster index, right? So farcaster.in, which you can go and you can pull up any meme coin. And what it does is, again, because your wallet's connected, is you can pull the list and you can see the top holders, and it's connected to their profile. So like you can go on any coin and see the holder list, and then you can actually see that person's profile connected. So it adds this kind of like social layer aspect, right? And then people build bots. So essentially, like when DGen launched, there was a bot that it would show whose account is buying and selling. So again, it adds to this like social aspect of things, right? Because if you're scrolling and all of a sudden you see that your favorite influencer just swapped and, aped in on something, maybe you're going to check it out.
Yeah, and I can see a convenience aspect too, especially with like the NFT mints. Like you're just clicking a button on a page you're already on, versus on Twitter, you have to click a link, go to the site, and maybe not even that. Maybe you have to like click a link to the Twitter profile, then go to click that for the link tree, then from the link tree, figure out where you buy it, then go to the site, connect your wallet, then figure out how to buy it. So it's like it reduces the number of steps down quite a bit, which I think a lower friction does mean more transactions, more things happening. You mentioned something that kind of made me spark an idea. Is there anything like if you hold X NFT, you get to join a special channel or club that's private for NFT holders, or if you own X token, you get to join our private community on Warpcast. Does anything like that exist?
Yes. So, yep, they have token gated channels, token gated group chats. So that's pretty cool because it can add in extra utility as well. And what's interesting too is, so say you create a channel, right? And then all of your followers that follow that channel, you could essentially pull their wallet address through an API. So again, when you're creating your content on Twitter, you know who your follower list is, but you could never really do an airdrop to your followers because you don't have their wallet addresses. But with Farcaster, you could, which is pretty awesome.
Are a lot of people using these token gated channels in group chats, and like how are people using them?
Yep. So I got invited to one. So what they're doing is they're kind of doing like a monthly subscription, at least for this one that I'm in. And I was gifted the monthly subscription. So it gave me access to this, kind of like token gated chat. And essentially it's kind of like everyone was in there and they're kind of like giving like deep dive analysis of all the new projects that would be launching. So someone would be like, "Oh, did you just see this?" Or "Is everyone minting this?" And it was definitely kind of interesting. So I was gifted it, and then because of the quality of engagement of that group chat, I definitely will continue with the subscription.
I was going to ask, what is tipping, and like how does that work? Because I always see that on like on Farcaster, everyone's like tipping each other. Like, how does that actually work? Because all I see is like I get like a comment and it's like 50 degen and like or whatever in the comment, and I'm like, I just don't even know what that means. Like, how does that work?
So degen is actually it's an amazing product, right? So the developer of that is JSIC, and basically what he did is, again, because you're building on this social graph and you can pull data. So, and I know that like for developers, the Twitter API I think is something outrageous, like a few $1,000s a month, which is kind of crazy. Whereas with Farcaster, you can kind of just like pull the APIs like very easily. So what he did with degen is basically so you have to hold at least 10,000 degen in your wallet to receive a tipping allocation. And then based on your activity, it increases your tipping allocation. Right. So again, like I'm spending, 4 to 5 hours on Farcaster a day. So my ranking is pretty high. The highest rank I had was about like 106. So that's out of, like 100,000 people. I was like ranked 106. So my tipping allocation was very high. So basically what it is I had an allocation of degen each day that I got to give out for free. Like it didn't cost me anything. And so I would just go through, and content that I liked, I would write, if I was scrolling and someone had artwork that I liked, I would write 500 degen. And essentially what that does is, on the back end, they're pulling in that data that just says, this FID number, which is my Farcaster ID number, tipped 500 degen to this Farcaster ID number, and it would cross-reference that against my allocation. Okay, does she have enough allocation? Yes or no? If yes, then, like credit this account 500 degen. And essentially what it was is you're collecting tips throughout the month. And then at the end of the month, you get to claim those tips. And it's a 1-for-1. So if I tip you 500 degen at the end of the month, you get to claim that 500 degen.
Oh, okay, this is just like a personal question. When I got degen, like I got an airdrop of degen, I don't even know why. I wasn't really even using Farcaster at the time. It was around when it airdropped, or when I claimed it was around $2,000. But at its height, it turned into like $60,000 of like this. Why did I get that? Like, what did I do to earn the degen airdrop? Did every Farcaster user earn it, or what was the deal with that?
Yeah, so you probably got the season 1 airdrop, which essentially all you had to do was follow the degen channel and post in there, like have some type of activity in there, and then have had some type of activity on your profile. So it was like a really like low bar, of entry.
Okay.
So
yeah, I did follow it.
Just for following a channel, you got that.
That makes sense. I only followed it because I thought I'd get like cool, like, people calling out, hey, like, this is a cool token, go check it out. So I went in there and I think I posted once because I was like, hey, what's this channel about? And then I never used it again. Wow, that was lucky.
And they did too is there was like a whole formula that they used. Like for instance, like lower FIDs, I think got like a bonus. So for the length of time that you were on the platform and your activity, it kind of gave you like a booster. So yeah, so I ended up getting like a really nice airdrop from that, which I mean, I've been participating in all the seasons, right? So each season I'm getting an airdrop, but because of how they set up their tokenomics, each season the tipping allocation decreases. So obviously, like the amount of tips that you receive decreases as well.
Yeah, that's so crazy. And you showed me the FID thing when I met you at ETH Denver, and you showed me that, and I didn't even know about that. But that's like, you know, you can see, I guess, when you join, whatever the number is like what number you are, what number in line you joined, basically.
Yes. Yep. Well, and back to tipping too. So DGen is kind of the one that like started it and kicked it off, but now people are kind of like reiterating it. So there's an awesome developer on Warpcast, and his handle is Deployer, and he actually has his own project that he has. And one of the products that his project has is called Floaties, which is really cool. So essentially, what it is any meme coin. Like obviously, there's only so many, right? But you get to reserve an emoji. So your emoji is your coin, and basically you get to tip directly through a cast with an emoji. So, for instance, like the DGen hat, right, would be DGen. So you go to his website and you kind of like load up your emojis. And then as you're scrolling through, instead of writing 500 DGen, you would just tip an emoji hat, and that would symbolize X amount of DGen.
What other cool things are being built that you excited? Like, what other projects are you seeing that are like Farcaster, almost like Farcaster native projects? Because I've seen that there's like almost like this category. Maybe you have BRC20 tokens, maybe you have Solana projects, you have base projects, and then you have Farcaster projects, which they don't have to be built on any individual chain, but they're kind of like are Farcaster native in a way. They could be on Solana, they could be on Bitcoin, they could be on whatever, but they like their identity weirdly is like they're a Farcaster token. So,
Yep.
So what other Farcaster tokens are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because there's actually this all kind of like kicked off with like the first ever Farcaster token that launched, which was actually called Points, right? So the first one was called Points, and I joined that, right? Just because I am a DGen. Like if I see something and it's like exciting, I'm gonna like kind of ape in, right? So like I aped into Points, and I actually like helped with the like community Twitter. I started running that. I was like in the Telegram, super active, which actually benefited me in the future because so I did launch my own project, and when I started going to all these events, people were like, "Oh, Bixbite, like I remember you like from Points. You helped out with Points, and I was like, "Yeah, that's me." So yeah, it was basically like the history of meme coins on Farcaster started with Points, and then there was Wow, which is like WOWOW. That one launched, and then there was Farts, which that one was like going to be crazy because basically they wanted to launch it just as a donation to Purple DAO, which Purple DAO is a DAO created to help like build and create Farcaster, right? So they support builders and creators building content and development for like Farcaster and Warpcast. And with that token, there was actually an issue with the contract where the money was like stuck in the contract and he renounced the contract. So it was essentially kind of like burned. So then he like redid it, and then there was like a Farts V2. Yeah, which is like kind of crazy. So yeah, I've been involved in all of these tokens, and then there was DGen. I'm really excited about DGen, to be honest. Like the developer of that is just absolutely amazing. He's really smart. He's being like very strategic with partnerships. Like I said, that Dracula app, Dracula would be kind of like a TikTok, Instagram type thing. And what he's doing is he's giving like DGen grants to these projects to kind of help bootstrap, which is really awesome because if like with Dracula, you basically upload video content and then you're earning DGen for the content that you're uploading.
So it sounds like a lot of these projects are like mostly like there's a lot of meme coins, but they have like some sort of utility tied to them. So it's a lot of meme coins with some sort of like Farcaster like utility tied in there somewhere.
Yep.
is there anything outside of meme coins that you've seen launching on Farcaster? Like Dracula, I think they have like a token like blood or something like that that goes with it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so there's Dracula, and then so another like project protocol that was launched before kind of like, Farcaster and Warpcast, is Zora. But Zora basically is like a platform where you can, like mint NFTs. So they have definitely like increased, usage and engagement and activity because of Farcast Warpcast. And they have something similar right now too, where you basically get to tip people that are minting NFTs. So it's kind of like Warpcast is essentially really harnessing like the tipping culture. And then there's, again, like I've been involved with nouns and little nouns. But there's a new token that launched, which is Nogs, Noggles. And they're doing tipping as well, but they're doing it again where you have to like load up your balance. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out, because with degen you're essentially given this like free allocation, but like with floaties you have to basically like pay the money for the floaty that you're tipping people, and then same thing with Nogs, you have to like load up your balance and then you get to tip people.
It sounds like kind of the same games that everyone plays throughout crypto. It's like, one blockchain takes off, so now it's like all these Ethereum killers, or one NFT platform takes off, so now it's like all the other NFT platforms that are trying to do the same thing. And as degen obviously had this crazy rise to stardom, is when everyone's like, oh, we're also doing tipping.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
outside of tipping? Is there like because like the value is always in like the new ideas, right? Like there's always like there's the people that like say, hey, this was successful, so I'm going to try to emulate that. Then there's the ones that say, hey, everyone's already doing that, but we could do this, this, and this. Like, is there anything you're seeing that's maybe a little different that people are trying, or that's in the works?
Yep. So there's one, because again, it's kind of like split into different like avenues, right? So there's kind of like the creator avenue. So as far as like creators, like artists, I'd say something that's really cool is base paint. So what base paint is essentially there's NFTs that are like paintbrushes. And if you have those NFTs, I don't know what the cadence is. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, but they have like this blank canvas and you get to go and like add your creative touch to that canvas, and then it's minted. And then because participated in that canvas as the creator, you get a percentage of those, like of the minting. So that's interesting as far as like kind of like artist wise goes. Generative art with through frames. So people are doing, generative art based on your FID or based on your history. And again, all of that data gets to be pulled because you're on a social graph. So to me, that's really interesting. Then if you like shift to kind of like the DeFi aspect, there's definitely like tipping through frames, obviously, swaps through frames, prediction markets. Prediction markets are really big. So there's a project on Warpcast called Pearl, and what that is essentially it's like a predictions market but with profiles. So every day there will be kind of this like question, right? Like, will Jesse Pollock get under or over 500 likes on his post, right? So people get to kind of do this like predictions market and like bet, so to speak.
But couldn't you game that bet pretty easy? Like, will it get over, and then like you're going there and you're like, oh, you're liking it, creating another account, maybe liking it, or getting your friends to like it.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of like creates this like engagement and hype. And like, so the creator of that project is Alex. And he's really awesome too. And that's another thing is like, what I love to see is the projects that are on Farcaster are very kind of like, rising tide lifts all boats. Like, again, like when I launched a project, I had 5 founders like reaching out to me from other projects like, hey, like love what you're doing, like let's collab, let's see how we can work together. It's very kind of like let's work together and like let's do this to kind of like further Farcast Warpcast versus like let's compete, which is awesome. Like you never see that at all in the crypto world. So yeah, like people like Alex who have like a larger platform, if if he like likes what you're doing and then he includes you in on one of the like daily things, it's like your account could absolutely, blow up, right? Which like that did happen. So there's another project that's really interesting to me, which is called Poster, and the creator of that is Cybershati, and I absolutely love her. She's absolutely amazing. But what their platform is think of like a Canva where you get to go and kind of like remix these art meme things, and then you can mint it as an NFT. So that's really cool. And then, so, she was involved in one of the Pearl things, and then, she has a really high tipping degen allocation. So it's like her account went from like a few thousand to like, I don't even know, she probably has like 15,000 followers right now, which compared to like Twitter numbers, that doesn't sound like a lot, but in the Warpcast world, like that's pretty huge.
You're building a project. You mentioned a couple times you're building Gloom. Can you explain like what is Gloom?
So as I said, I'm kind of like a degen, and I like to really like pay close attention to the market. So it was, like the night of February 13th, and it was like 5 a.m. and I was scrolling on Warpcast, and all of a sudden Vitalik posted in the Gloom channel. And the founder of that Gloom channel was basically not really too happy with the whole kind of like degen tipping culture. And he's like, at least this channel has like not, been like plagued with the whole like degen tipping, culture. And then Vitalik posted a link that said like self-fulfilling prophecy. And then he wrote like degen and Gloom. And I was like, oh, okay, like let me grab my laptop real quick because whatever this token is, it's going to fly. So I went and I looked it up, and it was on mainnet. And I had been trading like degen on Base. So to go from Base, where you're paying like 5-cent transaction fees, to go to mainnet and like pay like 40-cent or $40 transaction fees, I was like, ooh, that's kind of steep. And I had been playing around with this Reflections contract, and I was just like waiting to launch it for something. So I thought, and I was like, okay, well, degen is on Base. This Gloom is on mainnet. Like, I'll just launch a Gloom on Base, right? So I posted, and again, I had like 350 followers on Warpcast because I had only used it for now and stuff, really. So I just posted and was like, hey, listen, like, this is a late night thought experiment. Like, let me just try this, right? Like, we'll see where it goes. And it just like quickly kind of like took off. And not like take off like, like Pepe or degen or anything like that, right? But for me, it's like I started the LP with $700 and was just kind of like YOLO, right? And it just like quickly took off. And again, people had known me from like points and nouns and stuff like that. So people knew that like I'm doxed, I'm credible, like I've gone to tons of IRL events, like I'm putting like my social credit score like on the line for this. So it's not like I'm going to rug or anything. It's just like, let's try it out. So we launched it, and it was, kind of like this Vitalik meme coin. And then I quickly saw like how I could use kind of like degen, like the degen tipping to like bootstrap, like this project. So what's crazy is, again, like my tipping allocation daily was pretty high. So essentially at one point I had, like a $750 a day marketing budget, which was given to me by degen, right? Because that's what my allocation was worth. So I was kind of like, all right, how can I like utilize this, right? So it was like every day I would be going into different channels, and I'm like, hey, like post your like gloomy memes in here and I'm tipping you. So it was like this way to kind of do this like social engagement hack.
How do you see what your degen allocate? I've never checked mine. But I bet it's
really?
Probably something. I don't even know what you're talking about with the allocation until this podcast.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you go to degen.tips and you connect your wallet. And again, you have to be holding a minimum of 10,000 degen to get that allocation. And then based on the activity from your profile, you get a higher allocation to give out each day.
I mean, I don't know if I'm holding more than 10,000, but it was worth over 60,000 like a month ago. So it's probably...
No, it's not the value. It doesn't have to be 10,000 value. It's just 10,000 tokens. So right now I think
how much would that be
like,
worth?
Depends on the price of degen, but maybe like $350 worth right now.
Oh, so I definitely have more than 10,000.
Yeah.
And just to give people maybe some background into how I know you, So I was at ETH Denver. I was with this guy, Cade, I'd met for the first time. He's from, I know him from online. And we were at the base booth, literally just doing like a Polaroid photo. I don't even remember why we started talking to you. We were just like sitting there. Maybe I mentioned something and you're like, did I hear you say this? I feel like that's what happened. I don't know. But anyway, you were talking all about Farcaster and all this crazy stuff that I'd never heard about Farcaster. I was like, what are you talking about? And you're like, what's your FID? And I was like, I don't know my FID. I don't even know what word you just said. And then you're like, what? You're an under 10,000 FID and you don't even know what an FID is? And I was like, I don't. And then you're like, well, I have this project, Gloom. And I was like, okay, what's that? And you're like, it's a meme coin. And I was like, oh, cool. And you're like, it's brand new. I think the market cap was like 500,000 or 400,000 or something like that. And so you told us, like, you know, you're really excited about it, you're going to build all this stuff. And I don't know why, but like, for whatever reason, I guess because we met you in person, we're like, oh, cool, we're going to buy this. So I like went home and I put like $5,000 into it. I was just like, I'm throwing $5,000 into this meme coin right now. And it's turned like at the height, it was like 30,000. I think it's like 28,000 right now. But yeah, it's been funny watching it grow and like turn into something. And you mentioned, so you have like an NFT collection coming. I think that's like some of that's for like liquidity. And then you have a Farcaster client. What does that mean, Farcaster client?
Yep. So basically, what a Farcaster client is basically just an application, like a DApp, so to speak, right? That's going to be built, but it's going to be built on the social graph. So one thing that we're doing, like with the NFT collection, which I think is going to be cool. It's going to be fun. It's like never been done before is like I split my time between blockchains, right? So I was really heavily involved with the Helium community. So I'm on Solana, you know, for DPen, Base, obviously, for kind of like meme coin trading, commerce, and then Bitcoin because Bitcoin is Bitcoin, right? It's kind of like just high store of value. I really love what Ordinals is doing. Like I'm part of the Ordinals coding club. I got to meet Casey, which was probably like the best night of my life. Just like chatting with him about like Bitcoin and Ordinals and runes and the complexity of adding royalties into a protocol and like bridging to L2s. Like it was really awesome. And I really love what Udi did with Quantum Cats was basically kind of like psyoping people into learning like technology, right? What he did with OpCat. So what I wanted to do with our project for Gloomers is we're basically launching a 10K PFP, but we're launching it simultaneously across 3 blockchains, minting through a frame on Farcaster.
You mentioned this, and it's kind of like almost like interesting to see like which one kind of has a higher price. Like, is it going to be Solana? Is it going to be Base? Is it going to be, you know, Bitcoin? Like, which one's going to carry the premium, and how like will there be like tribalistic kind of competition around it? I think that's what you mentioned when we talked.
Yep. So yeah, basically, and I had talked to one of my developer friends, and he was kind of like, oh, well, you know, like, why wouldn't you just do it on layer 0 and then have interoperability between, you know, 7 blockchains? And I was like, well, it's already been done, right? Like Tiny Dinos kind of like already did it, you know? And to me, it's going to be interesting because there is no interoperability. It's going to be chain v chain. So we're going to have kind of like quarterly contest. And yeah, it's like, will Ordinals have the highest floor price? Is Solana going to have the most volume? Will Base have the most holders? Like, we'll find out, right? And another interesting thing about this, which adds like an extra spicy twist, is because we just had the halvening with Bitcoin, the fees right now are kind of like a little bit crazy. I think that'll kind of like level out as like, you know, the weeks go on, because right now it's kind of like Runes Mania, which Runes is like the meme coins of Bitcoin. So we're actually adding in teleburning, which is kind of crazy. So when we're launching this, the Bitcoin collection is going to launch from Optimism. So you basically mint on Optimism and get kind of like your receipt, right? And so you get the NFT and then you get to teleburn it to Bitcoin whenever you see fit, whenever you find optimal time with fees.
Teleburning would mean essentially the receipt on the Optimism end gets burnt, and then it's minted on Bitcoin, just at your leisure.
Well, so we're already inscribing the collection on Bitcoin, so it's already like inscribed, ready to go. But the thing is if when we're doing the mint, if you were going to pay the fees to have that transferred to you right now, it would be like rather costly. And we just don't want to have people like overpaying on fees. And again, I kind of like love the technology aspect of things. Like I'm really into like learning about like development and technical things. So I was like, why not adding in teleburning, right? Because I don't think many people know about teleburning. So again, it's kind of like this psyop to getting people to like learn about new things, new chains. And it's just going to be really like heavy in the education because to benefit the most out of this project, you would essentially have at least one NFT on each chain because we're going to be like grinding for like whitelists, airdrops. So if if there's a rune for the ordinals collection, you have to have like the NFT on an ordinal in order to get that benefit.
Okay. So you have it; they'll be minted on the Bitcoin blockchain, but it'll be controlled by like the issuer's address essentially. And so the way that they get ownership of it, it gets transferred to them. That's the teleburn.
Yes. Yep. So you say you have Gloomer 456 and it's on the Optimism chain, and you're ready to transfer it over to the ordinals collection. You would essentially be burning your Optimism Gloomer, and then you would be transferred your ordinal Gloomer. And one collection that did this already was On-Chain Monkeys, and they did it from Ethereum mainnet to Bitcoin. So we're like, okay, well, why not do it from an L2 to Bitcoin?
So you have the NFT collection, and you said the Farcaster client. So are you saying you're going to build your own kind of version of Warpcast?
So when we first launched, I was really like interested in degen and what they were doing. And I was like, okay, well, again, because we had the V2 router, we couldn't utilize the same contracts and stuff. So I was talking to this one dev and I was like, well, we need to find a way to like be able to tip directly through a cast, right? And then Jesse Pollock had posted about it, Brian Armstrong had posted about it, and everyone was saying, wouldn't it be great to be able to tip directly through a cast? And I was like, okay, that's what our Farcaster client could be. And then, since then, like things are moving so quickly, right? Like Floaties has been developed, which essentially allows you to tip directly through a cast. And then, I had met with a few different VCs, and they were basically saying like, if there's a feature that would enhance Warpcast, like Warpcast has a huge team of developers, so they would probably add that in quicker than you can go to market. So they were like, maybe like change your angle and don't try to compete with them directly, So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So, I feel like you can't really be like married to an idea. You have to be able to like pivot quickly. And I feel like as long as you're transparent with your community and you like let them know you're kind of like building in public and people are giving you like insight and feedback as you go, I feel like that's the best way to build. So essentially what it was going to be in the beginning was we were going to have this this client that was going to have all of like the wallet integrations from the NFTs. So I think that's really important because right now Warpcast does not have any type of like Bitcoin ordinal type wallet support. So it's gonna it was gonna launch with like Bitcoin or ordinal wallet support, Solana wallet, Base wallet, and you were gonna be able to tip directly through a cast. So what we're doing now is we're gonna kind of like lean in a little bit more heavy into a specific niche. So I think that the audio aspect is something that's kind of like missing. So that's what like we're going to be leaning into is more of like audio. So basically we're going to be creating like a dApp that will have all of the wallet support. And what I want to do is if you're a holder of the Gloomers NFT collection, you would essentially be able to like host your own kind of like channel. And then people can tip directly through that. So imagine having a type of like X spaces and people are able to tip you as the X space is going on.
Yeah, so it's just tipping in spaces, but you're saying you're creating a Farcaster client that's more audio kind of spaces oriented. With you mentioned like to create a channel, you'd have to have a Gloom NFT.
Yes. So basically to host, to be able to like kind of like host a channel, like host a live feed in there, you would need to have the NFT access. And again, since we're launching across essentially 4 different blockchains, the client would launch with wallet support for those 4 different chains.
Wouldn't that limit the use? Because, I mean, you only have 10,000 NFTs, so you could only have 10,000 channels.
Yep.
And what's the thought process behind that?
Yeah. So obviously we want to like start it. Like I feel like if you launch something and you try to go after everyone, it's kind of like a little bit of a failure, right?
Yeah.
So I want to kind of start where it's like the kind of like beta trial run, right? So to me, I feel like giving that like beta run, whatever that is, like whether it's, 3 months, 6 months, giving that just to holders to be able to like test it out, get first access. And then obviously like as it's growing, then you like scale and you open it up more. But I feel like giving that like first beta access to holders is really important.
That makes sense. So what you're saying is like temporarily it's limited to the NFT collection, but eventually it'll be open. And the idea is it's like the Spaces client of Farcaster.
Yeah, and you can have different use cases. So one thing that I personally love is I love karaoke. I've always done karaoke. So I think it would be interesting too to like again. So it's this like audio app, and you can use it for whatever use case you see fit. But like one that we would be kind of like heavily promoting is this kind of like online karaoke platform, right? So imagine again, you have a Gloomer, you get to host this stage, you're going on, you're doing like this singing, performing, whatever, people are tipping you through it. I would love to add in some type of like engagement like Unlonely has with their show Love on Leverage, where essentially like people get to like tip during their feed. And if they're tipping a lot, they hit the green zone. And then if people are like not happy with what's going on, that they like sell and then it hits the red zone. So it adds this kind of like crazy engagement aspect to it.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel like the audio aspect of social media, there's a lot to explore there that people haven't, like, because I get so tired of scrolling in my eyes and like using social media. I almost wonder if there's a way to like, I don't really know how you do it, but like a way to like have social media without having to have a screen in front of you.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's interesting, right? With like the whole like VR, AR kind of thing.
Well, not even a VR, AR, just like, I don't know, like how you listen to a podcast while you're jogging or whatever. Like, is there a way to like browse social media like audio only or something? I don't know. There's all kinds of weird things that could happen at a Farcaster. I mean, I'm here for the experiments to see what people make. Some of them might be stupid. That might be actually a really stupid idea, but it also could be a really great idea. Like, who knows until somebody builds it and you get to try it.
Yeah, the thing is, though, is again, what's really great is the amount of developers that are on Warpcast right now is just like, it's amazing. So even if you have an idea and you post it in like the Farcaster developer channel, and someone thinks it's cool, like they would probably build it out for you just to test it, which is awesome.
I like that. Well, okay. So you have Gloom. Gloom's a token. Is that going to have utility in this client?
Yes. Yep. So my thought process, again, is like to build out kind of like an ecosystem of Gloom. So I want to not be like pigeonholed to one thing. And I'm thinking like long term with this. So I want to have things where, there's activity and engagement during a bull run, but then also like a bear market too, right? So it's not just one thing. So we have like the audio client that we're working on, but then we also have this kind of like staking rewards app that we're working on, which essentially the idea with that is to create like the Solana phone of base, right? Where, if you're a new project and you want to like reach an audience, you would essentially like airdrop to this dApp, and then people stake their Gloom. And then based on the amount of Gloom that you're staking, you would receive like a pro rata share of the reward pool.
That is cool. Man, I have so many ideas around this. Like, I'm just like, you got my like mind buzzing around this. To kind of move it forward, what do you see happening to Farcaster as like the bull market picks up? Like right now, it's probably the lowest activity we're going to see on Farcaster, because as soon as retail shows up, I think we're going to see these things pick up like, not like tenfold, but like 100 to 1,000-fold, like the amount of activity. Do you see like entire projects just like launching out of Farcaster and this being like a really critical hub for like, kind of how I mentioned earlier, like Farcaster projects in the same way that we have Solana projects or Ethereum projects? Or what do you envision it might look like?
Yeah, no, I definitely see like Farcaster and Warpcast being this kind of like launch pad for projects. And why that is because like a few things. One is there's like actual VCs on Warpcast, right? Which is kind of like crazy that you can get access to them so easily. Like there's literally a venture capital channel that is full of VCs, and they're posting in there and they engage with you, right? So that kind of handles your funding aspect of it, right? With what's going on with like all of these airdrops and degen tipping, it essentially gives you kind of like a free marketing budget, right? To be able to like bootstrap your engagement. So that handles your engagement. There's channels like, art, crypto art. There's like a plethora of like resources if you needed like content creation, right? So that kind of handles like the content creation, artistic part, right? So it's like every aspect of a launch could kind of like be handled through some aspect of Farcaster. And again, just like the culture and the community is everyone really like, it's kind of like that WAGMI, right? Like we're all gonna make it. It's kind of like everyone is like rooting for each other's projects, which is wild to see because it's like you never see that in crypto, right? More or less like a whole community where it's like everyone wants to help each other out. Everyone's kind of like utilizing each other's like resources. People are creating stuff, like I said, farcaster.in. Any new like token that's launching, you can go there and you can see it and it integrates in. People are really willing to like just help create stuff for your project too, which is kind of awesome to see. So yeah, I definitely see Warpcast being this kind of like launch pad. So I see a lot of projects like coming and like wanting to create and launch and having their main base be Warpcast. Like even right now with Gloom, like we have I think like 4,000 followers in our channel, which again is like really great for Farcaster because I think they have maybe like 300,000 like daily active users. So you compare that to like X, right? It's like a drop in the bucket, but it's like very like high signal, high quality engagement.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's people that have been involved in crypto throughout the bear market. Like they've made a ton of money, especially at the height of the bear market. They're going to be loaded at that point. So it's like it's kind of the best of the best as far as it goes. And I only see it getting bigger and blown up from here. Last question would be, what's the alpha right now on Farcaster? Like, what should people be doing or exploring if they want to be early and just kind of staying up to speed on the coolest, newest things happening on Farcaster?
So I would say definitely, like first and foremost, like sign up, right? A lot of people still don't even have accounts yet. So definitely sign up, like start following, kind of like channels. So the base channel, the Farcaster channel, and then really just dive into whatever niche that you want to like niche into, right? So if you're an artist, follow the artist channel, the crypto art channel. They have things called rounds right now too, which I don't know if you've heard of those, but it's essentially like, so for instance, if I create a round through rounds.wtf for my project, I can say, hey, here's like, we're having a contest, here's 100,000 Gloom, and essentially all of the engagement and activity within the channel for that week, you earn a pro rata share of that rewards, which is crazy, right? So like if you're an artist, they're having tons of art rounds, and like animation rounds in like the Nouns animation channel. So literally just go there, post, and you're making money. It really is that simple. Like there's no like red tape, fine line, fine print. You're literally, your posts and your engagement are earning you rewards.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to digest in this episode. Again, I didn't know a lot of this stuff, so I would imagine if I don't know it, there's like a huge swath of people, the vast majority, I'd say 99.999% of humanity, probably doesn't know all of this stuff. So lots of alpha here, lots to explore and go check out. If people want to follow you or they want to keep up to date with what you're doing with Gloom, where's the best way to do that?
Yep. So on Twitter, it's just I am Bixbite, Bixbite. My handle on Warpcast is Bixbite. And then the channel on Warpcast is just Gloom Token. And then it's at Gloom Token on Twitter as well. And then same thing with Reddit. I just launched a Reddit because I was like, you know what, why not?
Yeah, yeah, why not?
Why not? I feel like you have to be across all the platforms, right? So it's like, why not?
Well, as always, none of this was investment advice. None of this was us telling you to go buy any tokens or go to buy DGen or Gloom or anything like that. You should always do your own research. And as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I do hold a pretty big bag of Gloom, and I hold a lot of DGen as well. That's just airdropped to me. I didn't actually buy it, but I hold both those things. So yeah, be aware of that.